Council Local Planning Panel meeting of 5th November 2025. Can I ask all participants to place your device on mute until such time as you're asked to speak. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Caramagal people on whose lands we're now meeting, albeit virtually, electronically. Attendees are also advised that the local planning panel meeting is live streamed and recorded in line with the provisions of the Act. No private recordings of the local planning panel meeting is otherwise allowed. We have no apologies from the panel participants, and I'll introduce those now. My name is Vince Hardy. I'm the chair of today's panel meeting. The other members on my left, Sue Weatherly, who's an independent planning expert, Gerard Teresi, who was also an independent planning expert, and Meredith Trevellyn-Jones, who is a local community reviewer. In accordance with the code of meeting practice, we've asked all panel members to review and declare any conflicts of interest, potential conflicts of interest, and all panel members have signed to those, and they've declared that there is no conflict of interest in any of the items being discussed today. When we run through the agenda items, and I'll run through them quickly in a second, but when speakers are invited to speak, they'll be invited to speak for 3 minutes. And if there's any applicants speaking, they may be given some additional time if there's a number of issues they are needed to respond to raised by the objectors or speakers. Please note this is not a Q&A forum and certainly not a debating forum either. At the conclusion of this meeting, the panel members will retire for deliberations, and the outcomes of that process will be made available on the North Sydney Council website by the end of the week. We have 4 items on the agenda today, and we'll run through those in the published order. So the 4 items are: item number 1 is DA 274 /21/4 1 Eden Street, North Sydney. Item number 2 is 237/25 at 42 Carter Street, Cameroon. Item 3 is DA 5825, which is 8 Eaton Street, Neutral Bay. And then item 4 is DA 121/25 22 to 24 Carabel Street, Kirribilli. We have registered speakers for all items on this first item number 1 at 1 Eden Street, North Sydney. We have 3 speakers, and the first person registered to speak is John Claude Branch. I hope I've got that name right. John Claude, please unmute, and your 3 minutes will start from now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. I'll keep it very brief. I own and manage 44 West Street, North Sydney, which is the property directly to the rear of this DA submission. It is a budget hotel. Our rooms that currently face the rear of the property are 11 square metre rooms. They have a single bed, a desk, a TV, and that's it. They're extremely small. The proposed changes to this building will cause immense overlooking. So those studio apartments have balconies with poor screening. There's not, the screening is a joke. It only covers part of the balcony. Every one of those units will allow smoking inside or on the balconies. And I can imagine every one of those tenants there, or a large portion of those tenants there, will be smoking on their balcony, looking down on the residents of 44 West Street. And the building is, as approved, is within the rear setback, but what they're applying for is not within the rear setback. And I'm going to ask if they can, take it back to what it's allowed.
Okay, so is that the completion of your submission?
That's all I have to say.
Panel members, any questions for Jean-Claude?
No.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
The next registered speaker is Justine Butler on behalf of the Justine Butler on behalf of the Owners Corp at 1A Eden Street. Justine?
Hello. I did have a presentation to share. I'm trying to share, and it says only meeting organisers and presenters can share.
Yeah, we can't. There's no opportunity for a presentation. Sorry, Justine.
Okay. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Owners Corporation of 1A Eden, right next door to 1 Eden, and it'll be built up to the boundary, the development. And we do accept that the development will occur in some form, and we understand and accept the Land Environment Court outcomes and conditions. And we have been actively cooperating with the developer with DLAP inspections, but we do not accept this mod because there are negative impacts to the neighbourhood and to our building, and we think they are material and quantifiable. And the mod breaches the statutory and policy controls that other developments in this area have had to comply with, including Jean-Claude's development and our own. And it doesn't align with these conditions of consent recently issued. So we've read the planning document from Pivotal that says proposal that doesn't result in any quantifiable or material impacts, noting that they're relocating the communal space from level 3 to ground. So as Jean-Claude noted, that it's going to be a smoker's courtyard and used to have acoustic barriers around it. And there was a commercial space at ground level, which has now been deleted. Commercial space would have been easier to manage when it comes to numbers, familiarity with the rules and all that sort of thing. We now have a smoker's courtyard, I think is less than 3 metres from the non-smoking area across the fence, and from very close to our own residential balconies on the east. And it's, you know, the privacy and acoustic measures that were in the first scheme have gone. The envelope has increased, and that to incorporate a larger number of lodges. So from 17 to 20 lodges, 10 to 12 units. So that's where the DCP breach comes in on level 3. We don't see the reason for that other than to provide further units, thereby increasing the commercial uplift for the developer. We see that at the communal space at ground level has something called a fire protection sliding door. It appears to be glazed. We haven't seen something like that before, but it suggests a performance solution because the whole envelope is less than 6 metres from the Dalziel Lodge site. How that would be managed with people in a high turnover building in a residence communal area, we'd have concerns, but there's no BCA report for us to understand that better. There's no revised landscape plan, but the green space is reduced to ground level. The commercial space, the large one, they say is non-viable, but they don't say why. There are 7 active retail units in that little street round Eden Street and East Lane, ranging from hairdresser to cafe, bakery. The only commercial unit they've left is in the front, which looks to be just a bit bigger than an accessible toilet. So we're not sure what that will be viable for. But that's Justine, part of the mixed-use precinct.
Your 3 minutes is up, so can you just conclude, please?
Okay, so really that increase in lodges is going to have a huge impact on waste and traffic management. And we further think that waste, traffic, particularly construction management, construction traffic and all of those things haven't really been presented in this 5 to 6 metre wide zone, in this narrow street, in this busy area with accommodation and residences, but there'll be impacts, and this mod further increases them. Thank you.
Thanks, Justine. The third registered speaker is Jennifer Ivovich. Is that right? Sorry, perfect. Jennifer.
No, beautifully said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your 3 minutes plus down. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of 42 West Street. It's a 3-storey residential unit block constructed in 1969. I'm the owner of lot number 3, and I purchased the unit over 30 years ago. On behalf of the residents, I'd like to express our concerns regarding the potential impact of the proposed development on the amenity to our building, particularly at the rear of our building. The proposed structure may significantly reduce access to natural light and sunlight, which is essential for both practical and lifestyle reasons. Currently, the rear of our property contains 2 communal clotheslines, which are heavily relied upon by residents, approximately 80% of whom do not own a tumble dryer. So the loss of sunlight would severely hinder our ability to dry our clothes naturally. In addition, the rear garden is a valued communal space where residents gather for recreation and relaxation, and the current sunlight really contributes greatly to its usability and enjoyment. We are also concerned about the inclusion of the open space in the proposed development that may attract the smokers and vapors. 42 West Street is a designated non-smoking building, and the potential for smoke drift poses a health and safety risk to our residents. And the presence of smoking in close proximity to our property raises the risk of fire hazards, and particularly applicable in dry seasons. So I'd just like to request that you take these considerations into your thought with the planning and approval process. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate your time as well. That's all the registered speakers that we have. Is there anybody else online that is wanting to speak about item number 1? If not, then item number 1, people that have just spoken, there'll be no further public discussion from the panel this afternoon, so you'll feel free to stay on, or we can also leave if you so choose. We'll now move to the second item, which is DA 237/25 at 42 Carter Street, Cameron, which is alterations and additions to an existing dwelling house. And we have registered speak Stephen Gretsch from Stephen Gretsch and Associated Architects on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Gretsch, are you there? You're muted at the moment, I can see.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you now.
Lovely, thank you. Yes, my name is Stephen Gretsch. I'm the architect who was engaged by the owners to prepare the development application for the subject site. We were engaged earlier this year as the owners were expecting a baby and wanted to explore options to add a bedroom and some home office space. We submitted an application which retained the existing ground floor footprint, increased the upstairs footprint, was within the existing side setbacks and within the existing height, which granted the height due to the slope of the site does exceed the height limit. The neighbours received an objection from, the applicant or the owners received an objection from the neighbour. They have a view sideways across the subject site, and council has looked and prepared a report which recommends that the application should be refused on the view impact grounds. There was also an objection based on privacy, which I believe has been addressed. The application included some internal work, a study to the south side and an additional bedroom, and the recommendation by the planner as it stands is to refuse the entire application. We're actually asking the panel to consider whether a revised proposal would be acceptable. We've submitted that to the panel in the last couple of days and request that the panel consider whether a deferred commencement approval could be considered, subject to resolution of how that additional bedroom could be dealt with. The proposal that we've submitted as an alternative has a setback of about 3.2 metres from the side boundary, and is within the existing, within the allowable height limit. So it would be entirely compliant within the LEP and DCP controls.
Okay. Is that the completion of your submission for at the moment, is it?
Yes.
Okay. The panel members may have some questions. Panel members, any questions?
Not from me, no.
Not from me. Okay. Just letting you know, Mr. Gretsch, we did receive that amended plans, but it wasn't formally lodged through the portal, etc. So it didn't form part of our deliberations, but we understand, you've made a request for deferring of the application, and we will consider that and we'll address that in our response as part of the formal minutes. So thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that's the completion of item 2. Item 3 is DA 5820/25 at 8 Eaton Street, Neutral Bay. which is a multi-unit housing development comprising 6 dwellings. We have registered speakers being the architect and the planner associated with the application. Do you want to speak, Anthony Solomon and Greg Boston? Do you want to make an initial presentation, both yourselves or singularly?
Yeah, look, I thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg Boston, consultant planner. I'll lead the discussion, and Anthony's here really to answer any questions that the panel might have. So if you're happy for me to start, look, we are seeking deferral of the application to enable a couple of things to occur. One is for some amended plans that were put on the portal on the 8th of the month in response to concerns raised by council's assessing staff late in the process in relation to both height and solar access, and also to facilitate an on-site meeting between council's arborist / tree expert and our consultant arborist. Over 5 years ago, an application very similar to the one currently before the panel was submitted. It was ultimately refused mid last year on the basis of one issue being concerns over the retention of trees 10 and 12, which as nominated as part of that application. We did lodge a request for reconsideration, at which time council asked us to withdraw that and re-lodge it as a new DA because they felt that they would be out of time in relation to the 6-month statutory assessment timeframe. We got an updated arborist report prepared, which included route mapping. That was peer reviewed by Jackson's Nature Works to ensure that what was contained within that report was fair and reasonable. We resubmitted the application, and it wasn't until very late last month where we made aware that that there were additional concerns raised in relation to building height and solar access to the apartments. It was on that basis that we did submit on the 8th of last month some amended plans, which effectively just switched the orientation of the upper floor rumpus room and balcony elements to the north to ensure that the proposed apartments received compliant levels of solar access to those living and adjacent private open space areas. And as I said, this issue wasn't raised in the assessment of the previous refused application, so it was a new issue which we believe we jumped on reasonably quickly. Now, those amended plans don't form part of the assessment report before you. The other issue was in relation to building height, and yes, we acknowledge that there's a 1.37 metre building height variation just as the site steps down, just on the northern edges of the roof forms. The application is supported by a competent 4.6 clause 4.6 variation request. And we also note that this particular property is now on the indicative LMR mapping, whereby a 4-storey, 7.5 metre high building could potentially be anticipated on this site and on surrounding sites. So to that extent, we believe that the height breaches are fair and reasonable. The amenity issues are able to be resolved by the plans that have already been uploaded to the portal, and a deferral would enable assessment of that information and also the on-site meeting between the arborists, hopefully to resolve the issue of tree 12, which is the only tree now in contention, noting that tree 10, it's agreed, is in a state of decline and will be removed as part of the application. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mr. Boston. Panel members, any questions for the applicant?
Not for the applicant, no.
No. So, I've got a question. We haven't seen the amended plans, but you ran that you're seeking deferral for to consider, and that's correct that we didn't receive those. But in terms of tree 12, how would you suggest a deferred set of plans would respond to how you're going to manage tree 12?
Sure. Look, at the moment, there just seems to be a point of disagreement between the consultant, arborist and council's expert, and that there has been route mapping done. So there's been some trenches dug to demonstrate that what is proposed, won't cut through any significant roots, or certainly not to the extent that Tree 12 couldn't be retained and protected. So we were simply asking, and we've been asking this for a while now, just for an on-site meeting, just so that collectively the arborists can put their heads together and either agree or disagree. And if there needs to be additional separation between the proposed development and Tree 12, then we're more than happy to look at some further amendments. But at the moment, there just seems to be a point of disagreement, which we're hoping can be resolved by simply getting them together out on site to have a look at this one issue.
Thanks, Mr. Boston. I've got no other questions. No other questions. All right, appreciate your time today.
Thank
The
you.
architect wasn't looking to make any further submission. Mr. Solomon?
No. How can I follow what Greg Boston has just said? He's so eloquent, so nothing for me to say.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time. Okay, that's all the registered speakers for item 3, which leaves us now at item 4, the last and the remaining item. We have several registered speakers. This is DA 121/25, 22 to 24 Carabella Street, Kirribilli, which is the demolition, partial demolition of existing apartments on site and the erection of 2 new residential flat buildings. We've got a number of people. The first person I've got identified to speak is Wesley. Oh no, sorry. We've actually got no objectors registered to speak. We've received
One.
written. Oh, that's from Nadine Wheeler. Are you there? I thought it was only a written submission. I've got a
I'm
written.
objecting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, but I had you listed here as a written submission only. But if you're more than, Nadine, you're
No,
more.
mine's an objection.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to make a submission in your 3 minutes starts now.
I did. Yeah, I sent you a written one as well, but I'll read from that.
And we have read that. So, but feel free.
Okay. I'm the owner occupier of a unit opposite the proposed demolition site and rebuild. My comments and concerns in response to the report as presented by Michael Hornery, Executive Assessment Planner, North Sydney Council, in regards to the demolition and rebuild are as follows. Because I live directly opposite number 22, the view from my front windows include number 22, and between number 22 and 24 is the row of chimney pots of the historic Hill Street terrace houses, and in the distance, the top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge with its flags. I am concerned that the car lift overrun height is not adequately presented clearly in the DA, and I fear that my slot view will be lost and replaced with bulky box-like structures that are better suited to newer suburbs. The multiple balconies in the proposed building that replaces the current number 22 will increase the noise in Carabella Street, because, particularly at night, because it's designed to encourage groups of people to socialise close to the street's verge. Currently, there are no balconies in number 22, and most noise emanating from that direction is mitigated by that current building's structure and design. Should the development be approved and built, I believe the Kirribilli Conservation Area will be compromised, and given that I read in the meeting agendas preceding this assessment that Council's Heritage Officer has not ratified most of the proposed development, I can only wonder about how serious North Sydney Council is in maintaining the Kirribilli Conservation Area and its character. I note that this DA proposes to remove more of the Kirribilli built environment character elements than the previously approved DA for the same site that was presented to Council several years ago. If this DA proposal is approved, will we be reviewing another one in the near future that will aim for the complete demolition of the site? I am quite concerned. And fundamentally, I object to the volume and size of the proposed development and the compromises that it will force on me to accommodate it. The Kirribilli Conservation Area demands a more sympathetic solution than this. I would welcome any further opportunities to be part of it. I like adaptive reuse. I went to Sydney Open last Sunday. It's fantastic. I just don't think that the solution is an adequate one. Yeah, so I'm getting a bit emotional, but my view is beautiful. And I know the panel came and saw the site this morning, and it's just a glorious place. So please don't, yeah, I think I'm out of time.
Thanks, Nadine. Appreciate your inputs today and the time you've spent.
Thank you.
The only other registered speakers are from the applicant themselves, and there's a bevy of consultants and architects. There's no intention to actually make a presentation, as I understand it, but they're available to answer questions. And I think some panel members may have some questions. So, panel members, if you have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I do. It's Jared Teresi. I don't know whether it's the architect or the planner, but I've got a question relating to the building on the corner, and I might just reference for convenience sake apartment number A2.03. I don't know whether you want to bring that up on yours in terms of your documents. So we're talking about the same thing. So let me know that they've got that plan.
We'll give you a minute. We'll give you a minute to pull up that.
Yeah, we have that plan. This is Jonathan from Planning Ingenuity, with the town planners involved. I also have here Wes and Andrea from SJB. So yeah, should await the question.
Okay. So I noticed in the apartment on the corner, there's a bedroom window which is facing south. I'm wondering whether there is any reason why that window cannot be relocated so it actually has a easterly orientation rather than a southerly orientation. You've done that to the lower level apartment, but for the ones above, they seem to be facing south. Is there any reason why that couldn't be explored?
I might just jump in and answer that. On the lower level, the idea was that the landscaping at ground would screen that bedroom window from the courtyard on the building at number 22. But on the upper levels, that landscaping would only go to a certain height. So you might get the potential for overlooking into that courtyard of the neighbouring building on our site. So that's the reason why that opening has been orientated to the south. I suppose it could be potentially orientated to the east, perhaps with privacy screens or some obscure glazing, just so we can manage, assuming additional solar access with the privacy of the courtyard on the neighbouring property.
But the courtyards are within your own development. So
yeah, within our own development. Sorry, yeah, that's correct.
They're off bedrooms. Your principal open space is facing the street and your living area. So, okay, that's fine. The other question I have is now, I'll just bring up the plan as well, is now on the newer building, which is adjoining a larger multi-level residential building, and I'll give you a unit number in a moment. So if we take on drawing number 1004, and you've got basically apartment B1.02, you have two bedrooms. You've got one which is obviously facing towards the rear, and then you've got one which has a window which is facing, I would say there's no dimension, but somewhere in the order of 1 metre onto a blank wall, and that blank wall being the wall linked to the living area. The question I've got is that you got that little snorkel, that little nib in the middle of the eastern wall. Is there any reason that nib cannot be moved so it's actually on the corner of the building, so the actual window has a better outlook rather than actually looking straight onto a blank wall?
Wes, are you happy to jump on that?
Yeah, that's fine. Look, sorry, can you just explain the exact location again?
Okay.
What?
So if you go to the bedroom, which is in the middle of the unit layout, and you've got that window, and that window is directly facing the blank wall. So it's actually internalised. It's not facing the side boundary. You see that window?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the side boundary to the same bedroom, you've got that little snorkel, little, indentation or little nib,
Oh,
whatever.
yes.
What?
Yep.
The question I got is whether that nib can move further up. So it's actually linked to the corner of the building, which therefore means that the actual outlook from the bedroom is actually greater rather than the window looking straight onto a blank wall.
Yeah, I think that's something we can also investigate.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Chair. Other panel members?
Yes.
Yes, Meredith, yes.
Yes, my name's Meredith Trevelyan-Jones. I'm the community representative. A number of the concerns that have been expressed have been about the building being in a heritage conservation area and the expansive use of glass. So I think this question will be for SJB. And I notice on the Peel Street elevation, there's been some columns introduced to sort of break up the expansive glass to a couple of the apartments there in that rear extension. If you needed to actually articulate those areas a bit more so that the proportions of those glazed areas from the street were more vertical, so more like, for example, the terraces in Peel Street. As architects, how would you go about that?
I guess if we're looking at Peel Street, I guess firstly we probably feel like there is quite a large extent of wall when we consider it to the window to wall ratio. Particularly, we've retained the corner building along Peel Street. So apartment 101, if we're talking to the same plan as we were previously, has quite a large extent of solidity. Then when we get to the apartment closest to the right of way, there's a balcony there, so all the glass is very recessive. If we needed to add some wall on the face, we could, but I guess we feel in terms of its relationship to the terraces, much like the terraces, the glass is always well set back from the face in the order of 2 to 3 meters. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess I'm hearing you saying you'd prefer not to do it, but you could introduce some more brickwork there. Is that correct?
I think there could be a slight increase of brickwork, balancing the amenity of the apartment and the relationship to the context.
And equally in the new building facing Carabella Street?
Yes, I think it's probably of the same kind of discussion where we feel like the glazing is always very, very much set back and in shadow. So it's never on the face of the building, always back from the face. So the brickwork's always the thing that's on the face of the building. The glass is always recessive. So there could be a slight increase to the, I guess, the width of the column or the brickwork to give it a little bit more mass if that was needed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions?
I have one more. Thanks, Chair. So Sue Weatherly, I'm just asking a question. Have you reviewed the conditions of consent? Going to get to that, yes. And you're aware there's the condition that requires a relocation plan for the existing residents?
Yep, correct. Yep.
And have you had any experience in doing that in the past in terms of that process of assisting those existing residents?
I don't know if Maid Group has personally had that experience. We've been involved in a few jobs recently where we've gone through the process to, of course, impose the conditions to ensure the residents have been relocated respectfully in relation to development being redeveloped. In terms of the actual process, no, personally, I haven't been involved in that, but I'm sure with the correct guidance, we can assist Maid Group in going through that process when it comes to it.
And just the second part of my question: are the residents well aware that if this matter is approved today, then there's likely to be some process happening from today?
Yes, I do believe so. I think on the contract of sale as well, there's a vacant possession upon the signing of the contract. So once the applicant secures the property, it's required to be vacant possession, so they will be moved out of the property.
Sorry. So how does that? No. Sorry, Native. You said something that requires another question. So the contract of sale, so the current owner of the property is required to present to your client an empty property. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's not the future developer involved in the relocation. I'm just trying to understand how we ensure that that relocation plan is undertaken in a very sensitive way.
That I should have clarified. Once the developer purchases the site and the site gets signed over, it's required to be vacant possession. If the condition needs to be reworded, so at the time of the developer purchasing the site, that this relocation plan occurs, we're happy for that to happen earlier rather than later in the stage to ensure that those the residents are displaced appropriately.
Yes. What would your feeling be that the relocation plan was a deferred commencement condition? Not that they be relocated, only that there's the plan has to be approved before the consent becomes active.
I guess that depends on the timing and the terms of the contract for the developer. So I'm not sure. I can't really speak to that exactly as to exactly how that contract of sale is going to work. I'm not sure if the main group has any more information on that, those types of specifics.
So just because what I'm thinking, and this is just me thinking aloud, I haven't considered this in any great detail, but there is a possibility that upon signing of the contract, the current owner could have issued, was it 30 days notification for eviction?
I think it's 60.
Yeah, so yeah. And therefore, this plan, which talks about 12 weeks notice, I think would have no effect. Anyone's got an idea about, am I interpreting that provision wrong or? Going to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to think about that a little bit more. But they do have, the 60 days. It just depends on when the contract of sale is activated and when the property gets sold on to the developer of the site. I don't know the exact timing of that and how that would relate to the development process and going through the CC and all those types of things. So that's a bit of a question that I can't unfortunately answer at this stage.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, understand that. The panel we have seen the condition and we may have, might make some amendments in the event that their application is recommended for approval. We might make some amendments to the timing of that particular condition if indeed it is recommended for approval.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
No other questions from panel members?
No.
Not from myself. So thank you for your participation, and that extends to everybody who's been part of the panel meeting. Thanks for your time. As I indicated earlier, the outcome will now retire for deliberations, and the outcomes of that will appear formally as minutes on the council website before the end of the week.
Thank you.